Rhonda, it looks like we're still waiting for quorum, correct?
Yes, I'm trying. There's lots of people I'm trying to get who's out there.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure the chair was aware of why we haven't chimed in yet.
So it looks like we have everyone except Supervisor Vasquez coming in. Cool.
Good morning, all. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can.
Morning.
Morning.
Thank you. Took me a moment to get in. I thought I was persona non grata there for a minute. I've been kicked out of better places than this.
Well, I do think, Chair Mayor, we do have a full quorum and it is 10 o'clock if you would like to get us started.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and call the February 18, 2026 meeting of the Mountain Line Board to order on this snowy Wednesday morning, and bonus points to Vice Chair Sweet for attending in person. So just a reminder that the Board of Directors may vote to hold an executive session for the purpose of obtaining legal advice from Mountain Line's attorney on any matter listed on the agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3. Executive session may be held at any time during the meeting, and executive sessions are not open to the public pursuant to Arizona open meeting law. And we'll go ahead and start with the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. City of Flagstaff, Lori Matthews.
Here.
Thank you. Coconino County, Geronimo Vasquez. Excused. City of Flagstaff, Maureen Sweet. Here. Thank you. NAU, Josh Mayer.
Here.
Thank you. And CCC, Tony Williams.
Here.
Thank you. We do have some guests on Zoom with us. Our attorney, Scott Holcomb.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Karen Cruz, the Cruz Group.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And Eddie Thomas from Insurica.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And oh, good. Okay, Supervisor Vasquez, you're with us. There. Awesome. Thank you. We do have staff here in the room and on Zoom. And it looks like Supervisor Begay is also joining us online. So we are in. Supervisor I'm sorry, Supervisor Begay.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
And we do have a couple members of the public that just came in. They just asked if they're wanting to We're good. We're not right here. Just observe? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, I'll turn it back to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for that. On to the safety minute with Sam Short.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
So today's safety minute is on winter storm safety. A winter storm is impacting our service area today and more than likely throughout the remainder of this week. Snow, ice, high winds, and reduced visibility significantly increase operational risk. Safety must be our first priority for employees, passengers, and the public. Please use the following tips to stay safe while driving during the next 2 to 3 days. Reduce your speed well below posted speed limits, especially as conditions warrant. Increase your following distance, minimum of 6 to 8 seconds following distance in snow and ice. Expect black ice on bridges, overpasses, and shaded areas or concrete areas. Use smooth braking and steering and avoid sudden braking or sudden turning inputs. Turn on your headlights for better visibility even during the daytime. Do not assume other motorists can see you or that you could see someone around you. Use ice and snow traction devices when transitioning from your vehicle to any structure. And winter storms make the area around you unpredictable. Be ready for anything. So our goal today is simple. Everyone goes home safe today. Thank you and welcome to the February board meeting.
Thank you, Sam. On to call to the public. I understand we have members of the public present. Do we have anybody that would like to speak?
So they said they would just like to observe today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So on to approval of minutes for our January 21 board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the board minutes from 1/21/2026.
I second. This is Matthews.
Thank you both. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you all. On to item number 6, in-kind time for MetroPlan.
Good morning, members of the board, and thank you for your time today. I'm actually going to turn this over to Kate Morley, Executive Director of MetroPlan, to talk about this request. And as a reminder, after discussion, this is an action item, so we'll need to return to action if you so choose to make one. So with that, Kate, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Heather. Chair, members of the board, Kate Morley, the Executive Director of MetroPlan. Next slide, please, Rhonda. I really appreciate, and you can go one more slide, really appreciate Mountain Line giving us the opportunity to speak to the board today about in-kind and MetroPlan's need for in-kind. We have a request to you to help us capture more in-kind by tracking your time committed to Mountain Line board meetings as impacting the greater region of MetroPlan so that we can do that. But I'm going to give you an overview of what that is. So MetroPlan is largely federally funded, and all of our federal funds require a match, either 5.7% or 20% match. We have very limited local funds outside of that, about $30,000 a year, which we get from our member dues. And we can use that for match. But outside of that, we really need this in-kind match to be able to draw down those federal funds. What counts as in-kind match is really anything that we're dedicating towards the benefit of the region. So it doesn't have to be time directly spent on MetroPlan activities. It has to be time that is benefiting the transportation system in the greater Flagstaff region. Next slide, Rhonda. This is a snapshot of MetroPlan's FY26 budget. And what I have circled and highlighted there in yellow is our in-kind requirements for the fiscal year. And this year we need more match than ever. We need $118,000 in in-kind match. So that means we have to get really aggressive about capturing all the opportunities that we can. Next slide. And really, the punchline of that is we have more grants than ever. So that's actually really good news. We just have to find that match to go with them. So what we are asking is allowing us to email you, Tammy Sukovieco, who is on this as well as our business manager, and she works with partners every month to send them an in-kind worksheet that looks like the one that you see on this slide here. We pre-populate it with the things we know you did on behalf of the region, but it is fillable and you are able to add additional things that we didn't know. So, if you spent a lot of time, if you had meetings with Heather that we didn't know about, you might be able to add those in if we didn't capture them. The idea is that every month you would get one of these, review it, make any changes as necessary, and then send it back to us. And then we can use it to draw down those federal grants that we have. Next slide. And really, that's all we wanted to present, but we wanted to ask questions, see if the board was okay with this, and then also alert you to emails that would be forthcoming if you did approve moving forward with this.
All right, do we have any questions for Kate?
Chair Mayor, this is Tony.
Go ahead.
It's not really a question. It's just as a representative for Mountain Line Board of Directors serving on Metro Plan, I have used that form since day one, and it really is an easy process. And I don't think it would be an inconvenience for any of us on the board with Mountain Line to sign off or even add additional things that weren't already included on the form. So just want the board to know, from my experience, it's been smooth and easy, and I think it would be the same for everybody else on this board moving forward, and I support the request.
Any other questions or comments?
Chair Mayor, if I may, I wanted to share that we at Mountain Line support this request. We currently are not collecting this time. We do not use in-kind match for our federal programs. And so approving this and filling these times out for Metro Plan has zero impact on Mountain Line and Mountain Line's funding source as they exist today. And we wouldn't anticipate there would be a future impact. In fact, we as staff complete these timesheets as well. And there's some extra tracking we have to do so that we make sure we don't report those same hours to our federal grants. But for you, there would be no impact to Mountain Line for approving this process in regards to our finances or record keeping.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. So if there are no further questions, we're looking for a motion to approve this. Is that correct?
Get it back to this slide.
Yes, if we go forward a slide, it should have the recommendation.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead, Geronimo.
Yes, so moved.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, sounds like that motion carries unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
On to item number 7, Mountain Line. Oh no, that one is we're gonna table that one, correct? But I'll let you lead it.
Yeah, thank you. So per my email from yesterday, I am proposing that the strategic plan, which was slated for action this month, be tabled to the month of March for that meeting. I really would like to get that report in your hands so that you have time to review it, formulate questions, and participate in a discussion of the strategic plan. And due to delays on staff part in getting information to our contractor, they finalized that plan only yesterday, and I really didn't want to rush that. So I'm asking for your support for tabling it to March for action. Tabling this item does not impact the planned action item regarding the CEO review either.
Okay, that's good to know, and we want to make sure that we do it right. That's a big deal. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to table this item until the next board meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Tony. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you for that. On to item number 8, 26-27 legislative priorities.
Thank you, Chair, Mayor, and members of the board. We actually are missing 2 of our guests that were going to speak on this item. I think we thought we would have more time for them to join. If the board is willing, could we flip items, this item with the insurance update? I do see that we have Eddie on the phone and Sam in the room. So if we could just flip these 2 items and give those 2 guests time to join, that would be appreciated. And if they still are not here, we'll get started with Karen.
I'm okay with that. We can go on to you said item number 9. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. This is Sam Short, Workforce Director with Mountain Line. So staff is recommending that the Board of Directors approve a reduction in Mountain Line's excess liability insurance coverage from $13 million to $10 million. Next slide, please. So you might remember back in August of 2025, during that board meeting, staff recommended to the Board of Directors to decrease our excess liability coverage. And the original recommendation was to reduce it from $21 million to $16 million, as we were having a difficult time procuring that large of coverage during the time. And our previous carrier, Great American, who carried our $10 million policy, was no longer doing those types of policies. So after discussion with staff and Mountain Line's insurance broker, Eddie Thomas, I believe Board Chair Vasquez at the time recommended that we actually reduce the $16 million original recommendation to the $13 million recommendation, which is what was voted on at the time. So since that time, we've been carrying $13 million of excess liability. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So currently, this is what Mountain Line carries. We have a $6 million total excess liability package with Travelers, and that costs approximately $363,000 per year. We also have a $5 million excess liability coverage, which we carry with Transit Re, and that costs $45,000 per year. And as voted on in the board meeting in August of 2025, we also elected to carry the $2 million excess liability coverage with Futuristic for $41,000. So that's what we currently have now. Next slide, please. So after recommendation from our insurance broker, Eddie Thomas, and I will allow him to talk to you here in just a second, he recommended that the upcoming fiscal year 2027, that Mountain Line only carry the $5 million excess liability coverage with Transit Re for the $45,000 as noted in the previous slide, and also go with the Community Transit Risk Purchasing Group for the additional $5 million excess liability coverage, which would give us $10 million total in excess liability. And we haven't procured that package yet, but on average, it's a minimum of 20% savings from Travelers paid in previous years. I'd like to now turn it over to Eddie Thomas, who is Mountain Line's insurance broker, to give any explanations he feel I missed and answer any questions the board might have.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Heather. Again, I'm Eddie Thomas with Insurica. I appreciate the board's time today. Working with Sam and Heather the past year and knowing them for many years beyond that, they know that we at Insurica in the public transit space work exclusively in the public transit field. And I think, as Sam said, we successfully asked for you all's permission to lower the amount of insurance down last year, and then with the goal to lower it down this year to 10 million. as we compare and contrast to other peer public transit systems across the US, 10 million is really the most insurance limit that we see in other states, even that have different tort limits. That being said, our goal is working with our client partners is obviously to control the cost of insurance and get the best deal possible for Mountain Lion. So one of the things we have been working with and we're going to recommend this year is looking at a new program called the Community Transit Risk Purchasing Group. What this is, it's a auto liability, general liability, and auto physical damage program for public transit. The only agencies or companies, if you will, that are in this insurance program are just like y'all. They're either public or non-for-profit public transit. The members, as Sam said, is shown in the slide, the members that we have moved to this program are seeing year over year savings of about 20%. And more specifically, because it's an alternative risk program, if you will, we're able to accurately control the cost and accurately predict what our costs will be for the years to come. I just recently read the fiscal report for FY 2026. And again, the insurance industry is expecting anywhere from 20 to 40% increases in the excess layer, not the primary layer, but the excess and umbrella layers. That's one of the things that this program allows us to facilitate is controlling those costs. And instead of it being 20 to 40%, it's inflationary, right? So maybe 3 to 8% year over year. So this program, we are going to recommend to Sam and Heather. We're going to, as the insurance renewal approaches, present options for this program along with your current standard program with Travelers for the commercial auto insurance package for FY 2026. I know it's a mouthful, but we have worked very hard, and we feel this is a great option for the public transit space moving forward. Any questions?
Can I ask a question? Is this
Chair, just one, sorry, Chair, we have one of the members of the public wanting to ask a question.
Okay.
I was just curious on what this
Can they introduce themselves first, please?
Can you give us your
yes,
name?
sorry, my name is Evan. Am I good?
Okay, please go ahead.
I was curious on what this insurance covered, if it's for like the buses or the riders or the drivers, just out of curiosity.
So Mountain Lion has multiple lines of insurance that cover all facets of their operations, from the workers' comp to the vehicle insurance, the liability insurance, the general liability insurance, the auto physical damage. They have directors and officers. They have every insurance under the sun that a municipal public transit agency will need. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So as we talk about the cost of insurance, what drives the cost of public transit insurance is the auto part and the auto liability part. For whatever reason, in every city in the United States of America, public transit buses have a bullseye inherently on every bus, right, wrong, or indifferent, and those costs associated with the claims on the insurance policy or what drives up the insurance costs. So those three lines are what we focus on to try to control and mitigate for our public partners.
Thank you for that. Any questions from members of the board?
I have a question.
Sure, please go ahead.
So we have not procured the community transit risk purchasing group. And if we don't, for some reason, if that falls through, do we have a backup plan?
Correct. Yes, I'm sorry, Sam.
Go ahead, Eddie.
So yeah, obviously you currently have a robust, what we call a first dollar insurance plan with Travelers. We have not received their renewal terms yet. Mountain Line renews on July 1st every year. Typically, we see those renewal terms 30 days or less from the renewal date. So moving forward, we're going to get the renewal terms that Travelers offers. And since we are the higher broker for Mountain Lion, it's also our job and duty to present other viable options to Mountain Lion, one of which is going to be this year the Community Transit Risk Purchasing Group.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Any other questions from members of the board? Okay. Thank you both, Eddie and Sam. If there are no further questions or comments, we're looking for a motion to approve a reduction in Mountain Lion's excess liability insurance coverage.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I had one slide left, but it was
please. So go ahead, Sam.
Changing to the so some of the benefits of changing from Travelers to the Community Purchasing Group would be an estimated savings of $73,000 initially in our first year. Again, that could be higher, but I went with the lowest percentage given to me. And it also improves our ability to procure insurance from year to year, as generally our insurance rates have gone up from 15 to 20% annually. So it would improve our ability to procure affordable insurance more often than not. And that's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thanks. That's important stuff. Sorry to cut you off.
No worries.
So with that, we're looking for a motion to approve a reduction in Mountain Lion's excess liability insurance coverage.
Chair, this is Board Member Matthews. I move that we approve the insurance reduction as presented.
Thank you, Board Member Matthews. Need a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Vasquez. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we ready to go on to the discussion on the legislative priorities?
Yes, it would be great to go back to that item if we could.
Okay, so
So while Rhonda's,
go ahead.
Okay, so while Rhonda's pulling up those slides, I'd like to kick off the conversation with an introduction to Karen Cruz. Karen Cruz is of the Cruz Group, who represents us on state priorities. Karen's going to kick us off with a review of kind of what does the state outlook look like and what are the proposed priorities that her and I have drafted for your consideration. And when Karen is done, hopefully Bob and Tracy from Nexus Consulting will be with us and they can do the same on the federal picture. So with that, I'll kick it over to Karen. I know she's at the Capitol waiting for other items to come up in other committees. So we appreciate you, Karen, giving us some time today.
Of course, and good morning, everybody. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. I know I've had the privilege of representing Mountain Line down here at the state capitol for several years now, and we've been very successful in a number of different ways. Taking a step back, statewide snapshot, there's a variety of things at play at the moment. The legislative session just started in January. We are in the last week to hear bills in the Chamber of Origin. So all of the House bills have to be heard this week in committee. All of the Senate bills have to be heard this week in committee. If they have not been agendized, they die, or they could come back as strikers. So it's a little nuts this week. In fact, meetings, committee hearings have been going since 7 a.m. I was here until almost 10 p.m. last night to testify on a bill. So it's a little bonkers down here. As you know, the state, generally speaking, does not fund transit. We several years ago, four or 5 years ago now, were successful at getting a $6 million capital appropriation to fill the gap between what was needed that was given for the federal funds and what we had to get the construction of the Downtown Connection Center going. And we were very lucky, and it was very special that we got that capital $6 million appropriation for that capital expenditure. In fact, it raised quite a bit of eyebrows back then. And since then, there's been a little glimmer of hope in the transit community that maybe our foot is in the door to explore other transit funding opportunities. The SMART Fund is one that in 2019, I believe, a fund that was specifically designed for and appropriated, capitalized for local match projects, federal projects that needed local match dollars for rural communities only, for transportation projects. Was funded. It's hugely successful. Many times over, the return on investment for that small amount of local dollars, state dollars that local entities can apply for their transit programs. Mountain Line has been a beneficiary of those funds for, I think, 2 or 3 projects now. We are eligible for those. I was at the table 2 years ago when they updated some of the requirements for that fund and decided to recalibrate the buckets. There's, population thresholds on the county side and population thresholds on the city side. So there's 4 buckets. And they wisely decided to twice a year recalibrate that so that the buckets that are getting a lot of use are actually continuing to get funding from the buckets that are maybe not being utilized that year. So that was a very important change that was made. We also are, generally speaking, we aren't this year, but we generally speaking have a project in what is called the RTAC bill, the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council has a bill every year that Metro Plan helps to whittle down through their process. The priority projects in the region, they get put forward in one big bill, statewide big bill, ends up being tens of billions of dollars worth of need. And the idea is just to be able to demonstrate to legislators that what the need actually is in infrastructure dollars out in the rural communities. And then it is on us to advocate for our specific projects with the hope of getting some funding for our particular project. Mountain Line has had projects in that RTAC bill in the past. We don't this year. The board would approve something like that, but we don't this year, but maybe in the future we might. So we continue to support the RTAC bill every single year, even if we don't have a direct project in there. It helps to benefit all transportation and transit projects throughout the state. It's just kind of nice to support our sisters out there. The other thing that I'm carefully watching, because I think it will be a real opportunity, is that there is a transition going on in ASTA, the organization itself, the Arizona Transit Association. And with that, I think we will welcome some opportunities to elevate their advocacy efforts. And we hope to have some influence in that, I guess I would say, not in the hiring process itself, but once that new executive director is hired, we hope to be able to hit the ground running with some elevated advocacy efforts and have them join us in some of our advocacy efforts. We've been tip of the spear on a number of different things. And so it would be nice to have ASTA out there helping us out on issues like yield to bus that would be a pretty big lift. I don't know why, but in years past, that has been sort of a controversial issue. And so to have the weight of an entire statewide organization behind us would be very helpful. And that's something that we would welcome some work in the interim to work with members of the transportation committees on both sides and the governor's office to work through whatever challenges there might be to that and come up with language that everybody can live with, that's compromise language that actually is beneficial, and bring that forward next year. That is the hope and the wish. And then related to the insurance pool, there are some state challenges or state barriers for us creating, not barriers, steps to go through in order to create a self-insured pool that typically is very controversial also. And so it would be helpful to have other allies with us in that effort, because it does benefit all transit agencies, obviously not just us. And then the other thing, kind of longer term, that we're working on is keeping our ear to the ground on statewide dedicated funding source for transportation and transit. ADOT has launched a listening tour, and they're going around the state and hosting meetings of community members, leaders, transit and transportation experts to learn about and listen to what are the needs out there, what are their concerns, what are the challenges to delivering on transportation and transit projects. And we have been very active in making sure that in each one of those areas where ADOT is hosting these tours, that there are transit voices that are invited to these meetings so that they can give voice to the need for transit and what the opportunities are and should be, what the needs are in those particular areas. And that's been very successful. In fact, I know the most recent one they had in Winslow, it took up almost all of the conversation was about the need for transit. So that's very, very good. So hopefully after that, that will culminate in a report at the end that will simply just recap what the listening tour captured in conversation and what the needs really are. And then, from there, we'll see what happens as a result of that. But we hope that that will contribute to a larger conversation about next steps, about what to do about that now. We know what the needs are. We know that money is needed. So what are we going to do about that? And I've been keeping my ear very close to the ground on who is saying, who's gathering any kind of not official, but conversations about more details about what next steps could look like in terms of a statewide effort. And so just keeping my finger on the pulse there. And then the other thing, lastly, I want to leave you with is Mountain Line, and Heather in particular, has done a really terrific job of expressing transit, not as a transportation, not as a need in the community, but part of the community. We are part of the success of a community. And so we have embarked on meeting people and establishing collaborations and partnerships outside of the transit community with economic development organizations that can be validators for us when we are going at the federal level, which you'll hear about, but when we're going to the federal government and trying to establish saliva testing versus the 1970s style of drug testing with, marijuana being now legally available, we've got to adjust. And that is something that doesn't impact just us, it impacts other industries. And bringing that to the attention of the executive director of the Office of Economic Opportunity was it was kind of revelatory for her. She had never really thought about transit as a critical element of workforce development. I mean, she knew it, it was out there, she understood it, but to bring it into sharp focus for her in a real example, with real examples, was very helpful. So we will continue to identify, and we have identified other associations, coalitions, state agencies, others that are out there, the small business, the Local First, other organizations like that, where their employees utilize transit. Healthcare companies, retailers, grocery stores, gas stations, all of those entities that hire people that rely on transit. So that is something that we have been working on and will continue to work on, so that as we shift into either statewide dedicated funding or whether it's any other issue, advocating for funding for transit period in our state. We're one of 4 that doesn't fund transit at all. All of those voices will be very good validators, very good collaborators, very good partners for us as we move along, and will help to elevate our cause. And I can get specific about bills going on right now, but there's really only a couple. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Sorry, I kind of droned on a little bit, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
We appreciate your insight. So any questions from members of the board? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Karen, for all the work that you're doing on behalf of Mountain Line.
Thank you, everyone.
I know that Bob Holmes from Nexus has not yet joined. He told me he will be joining any minute, but if we could go back to slide 1, maybe I'll just take a few minutes and go through the priorities that were in your packet and what we are proposing. And so we'll start with the federal priorities. Our first and foremost priority has been our commitment for over a year now, and will continue to be the song we sing the loudest, which is ensuring reauthorization of transportation funding. The 5-year funding bill does expire in the next 12 months. And so getting that renewed and secured for another 5-year period is essential to us. And really our message has been and continues to be, it needs to be funded at the same funding level. Our costs have increased significantly from what it was 5 years ago, and that increased level really just ensures that our funding from FTA stays consistent with what we're seeing in cost increases. Our second priority is really about the STIC, or small transit intensive city set aside. So right now, of that funding bill, as it's authorized, 3% of the funding goes to cities who have met or are providing service in small urban communities that is consistent with the service levels being provided in medium-sized communities over 200,000 people. We're asking for that set aside to be increased from 3 to 5%. I will share reflectively that when it was increased from 2 to 3% as part of the last funding bill, Mountain Line saw our STIC awards go from around $350,000 to just over $500,000 per measure. So this is a great way to seek support that's not new money for transit programs, but is a significant way to recognize those systems like ours that are high performing. And I'll go over the last couple, and then I see Bob has joined us, and I'll turn it over to him. So on the next page, Rhonda, or next slide, the remainder of our priorities focus more on the regulatory side. So this is, Karen mentioned the saliva testing. Several years ago, we finally got FDA to recognize that urinalysis is about history of use and not about impairment, especially when we talk about marijuana. And they authorize saliva testing. Our goal is to make sure that we're testing employees for impairment. And so saliva testing is a significant way for us to do that, especially in states like Arizona where marijuana is legalized. We continue to lose applicants who are marijuana users because they are allowed to be marijuana users. And that testing that we currently use, I mean, it will test for use as long as 45 days ago, which really has no bearing on their ability to do their job today. Additionally, we're advocating for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to take what they offered in a temporary waiver of the CDL program and make it a permanent change for transit operators. This makes the license relevant to the job that our drivers do every day. The state of Arizona will not change their testing requirements under a temporary situation. It's quite expensive to do. It's a lot of administrative burden for them, but it's also hard on people who are getting CDLs. And so they said if they would work with us to advocate for that to be a permanent change, and then they were happy to follow that change, but not under a temporary situation. With that, that's briefly what's in your packet under the federal priorities, but hopefully Bob can tell you a little bit more about that federal outlook and why these are our priorities. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Heather, and I apologize for being late. It's one of those days where everyone was running behind schedule. So anyway, great to be here, and appreciate Heather and her team. They do a tremendous job. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks here in DC to hit the halls of Congress and make some things rain. I want to give a kind of a brief overview, kind of where we are with regards to Congress, and then we'll talk a little about these federal priorities as well, and kind of an outlook for the surface transportation bill. So Congress is, it's controlled now by both houses are controlled by Republicans, and obviously the presidency is controlled, the executive branch is controlled by Republicans. So they've been able to force what's called budget reconciliation through, which they did last year, the One Big Beautiful Bill. That gives them, when they control all three branches of government, they can pass budget reconciliation. That also gives them the priority in appropriations and other things like that. In terms of appropriations for fiscal year 26, we still are running, we've passed 11 of the 12 appropriations bills. The one outstanding bill is still out there. We're actually in a partial government shutdown right now as we speak because DHS, Department of Homeland Security appropriations, is the one remaining appropriations bill that hasn't been done. As you know, that is caught up in a lot of drama with regards to the unfortunate killing of two protesters in Minnesota by federal agents, and folks on the Democratic side and on the Republican side to some degree too want to see some changes to the way ICE is handling some of these things. So that is holding up passage of that bill. And the Congress is in recess right now through next Monday, so it's probably not going to be resolved between now and then. And this partial government shutdown will probably last a significant amount of time. And I mentioned that for kind of one underpinning reason, which is the fiscal year 27 appropriations process is going to start here in earnest. Probably next week, our senators will release their appropriations portals and we'll be able to enter them. But it's been delaying everything. So, the fiscal year 26 started on October 1st, 2026. We're now 4 months into the fiscal year and we still don't have the final appropriations bill. So it's delaying everything. The president will release his budget probably in the next week. He gives his State of the Union on February 24th, next Tuesday, so 6 days, and that will set up what will be his priorities, which frankly are always dead on arrival to Congress. He's going to work on deficit spending and some other things that Congress will not adhere to. Now, in terms of surface transportation, well, let me talk about transportation funding because I know that's imperative. In the surface transportation bill, there was a lot of concern when the administration released their proposal. They are, what we like to say, they're more focused on traditional infrastructure. And by that, I mean roads, bridges, airports. They haven't been particularly friendly to rail and transit. Having said that, Mark Molinaro, who is the administrator for FTA, has been a strong supporter of transit, and he has been a vocal supporter of it, has been very helpful. Having said that, also is Administrator Molinaro just announced that he will be resigning his position, and it'll be interesting to see who takes over as the new FTA administrator. In terms of surface transportation, there was a great concern, and there should be, and we should follow this very closely, is what does that mean for surface transportation with this administration who is not particularly friendly to transit? Will we see huge cuts to transit? And the answer is probably not. And that is good news for that. We need to remain vigilant, but we have strong advocates in Congress. Congressman Graves, who's the chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, is working very well with his Democratic counterparts. Ranking Member Rick Larsen, particularly from Washington, who is a strong supporter of transit. And we expect surface transportation to look pretty similar to what it was in IIJA. And I would consider that a major victory, especially when we have all three branches, well, the executive branch and the legislative branch controlled by Republicans, who traditionally are not as friendly to transit. So we expect the numbers to be similar in the appropriations bills. We got massive increases in IIJA. So this, again, is very, very good news. Now, the one caveat I'll put on all of this is that the surface transportation bill is likely, it runs through September 30th of this year. We likely will not get a new reauthorization bill by then. So what will happen is they'll likely punt it for 180 days or potentially even longer into 2027, which will then be very interesting because there is probably a strong likelihood that Democrats will control the House of Representatives, and we will probably see an even stronger bipartisan deal in surface transportation that will be have more emphasis on transit. But by and large, I expect status quo with regards to transit and transit funding. Again, that doesn't mean that we have to let our guard down. We need to continue to be vigilant and continue to fight for this. In terms of our federal priorities, I think Heather highlighted them very well. She'll be back here with Jackie in a couple of weeks, and we're going to be going to meet with FTA. We're going to go meet with folks on the Hill to talk about some of these priorities. But obviously, something that Heather mentioned is the increase in STIC, small transit intensive communities. And as what's really important about that and why it's been strongly bipartisan is because it rewards high operating, highly efficient systems like Mountain Line, who has consistently gotten at least 5 out of the 6 benchmarks and usually gets 6 of the 6. And it's a major influx of funds, as Heather alluded to. And that is very good because we can use it for operations or capital. So it's a really just a critical program. Also importantly, since it's part of the 5307 program, it's money off the top. So it's no new money. And so Republicans and Democrats have collaborated on this. We have a bill introduced by Senator Moran from Kansas. Lawrence is a big stick proponent. He's a Republican from Kansas. He's introduced a bill with our Senator Gallego, to increase stick from 3 to 5%. The real purpose of that bill is to be a mark for the surface transportation bill, so they'll include that provision in the bill. We're currently working with House members. We're pretty close to introducing a bill in the House that will do the same exact thing. So I feel like we're in pretty good position there. We've been meeting with staff on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and the Senate Banking Committee, which has jurisdiction over transit issues. And we think and hope that that provision will once again be in the surface transportation bill that will benefit high-performing agencies like NAPTA and Mountain Line. So with that, I will hand it back and see if anyone has any questions. I'm happy to answer, and it's good to see a lot of old friends here. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Bob? All right. Any comments, additional comments from staff?
I do think that Heather had to step away. Rhonda, can you move forward? I think that there's a last slide on local, and I believe this is one that we also are asking for adoption on the legislative priorities. So just to round it out, our overall legislative priorities, we do also include local as well. And these are a lot of things that we're continuing to work on. So number one is the codifying transit into various city processes, and Busy is going to be giving an update on some of this progress soon, but have made great progress with city staff on this item as well. And then just ensuring through all of the levers that we have with our relationship with staff is making sure that transit is considered in plans and development conversations. And this sounds like a really kind of nebulous one, but it is really important when Mountain Line sits in a different building and a different organization than a lot of the people who are making the decisions on things that ultimately impact our transit system, making sure that we have that productive relationship so that we have what we call the kind of proverbial seat at the table, and that transit is not an afterthought. It's a lot harder to retrofit for transit than it is to think of it ahead of time. So that's what those last two local ones are about. And then I think if I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but I think that the next slide is asking for a vote on the legislative priorities, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you, Jackie. All right. So if there are no questions from members of the board, we're looking for a motion to approve and adopt the 26-27 legislative priorities.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll give that to Board Member Williams, and then second by
Matthews.
By Board Member Matthews. Thank you. Trying to pick up everybody's voices here. So, do we have any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. On to item number 10, July 2026 service changes. We'll have Jackie lead that discussion.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. The first thing I want to point out is that I need to update this title to August. We actually, we had not made a decision yet on when we want to implement service changes, but we are looking at August 2nd, which is a week before school starts. So although this item says July, it actually is technically 2 days into August. So next slide, please. So we are asking the board to open a public comment period today. So for several service changes that we work on. It triggers our Title VI plan, which means that we need to open up an official public comment period to take comments on those proposed service changes. And not all of these service changes triggered that, but similar to last year, I believe you were all part of that process last year. We're packaging them all together so that the public can see what we are proposing and can comment on any of the proposed service changes. As a reminder, a lot of these are a direct reflection of the successful passage of Proposition 488 back in November of 2024 and delivering on some of the promises made within that ballot measure. And then as another quick thing, this also happened last year, when you open a public comment period in the month of February and it needs to be open for 30 days, you cannot close it at your March board meeting because there's not 30 days between board meetings because of the fun short month in February. So this public comment period will actually be open through the April board meeting, and we'll present to you any comments that we receive, a wrap up of those, and then ask for action to close it and then to approve the service changes however you would like to. So with that, I want to just go through quickly the proposed service changes that we have on the table. The first one is to Route 2, which is our blue route, and you approved service changes this past summer that allowed us to permanently do what we call that Gemini loop. So our buses, it's no longer on the eastbound routing. So it's no longer one that we just do around school start and end times. It is something we do on every single round. But we still only had that one stop, the one that is near Basis and FJA on the Mesa. And obviously there's a lot of development that's happening up there. And so we are proposing to add 2 stops up on the Mesa. So our buses make that right-hand turn from Forest onto Pine Cliff, and there is a development there called the Lofts, I think Lofts on the Mesa. So we are proposing adding a stop there, and then we are proposing adding one near the Arizona State Veteran Home, which opened within the last year and a half. So serving both of those audiences. As a reminder, we do currently only go one way on this. We stick on Cedar, Forest, whatever it's called, when we are heading back downtown because of the left turn issue. We are still working on a feasibility study of a left turn from Pine Cliff onto Forest. But for right now, the proposed service change is to add those 2 stops. Next slide, please. And then this is an exciting one. So part of the Proposition 488 was increased frequency. So I think we've preached this for several years. Frequency is freedom. So the more often a bus comes, the easier it is to use. The less you have to rely on a schedule, the more likely you are to use it. So Route 3, our green route, is a route that traverses the Butler corridor, goes through the Fox Glen neighborhood, out Solier to the mall and back. And so we would increase the frequency on this route to 20 minutes. So a bus would come every 20 minutes on weekdays from approximately 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So really excited for that proposed change to offer better service in that corridor. Next slide. Route 5, this is our route that goes it does a little meandering, goes by the hospital, it goes around by Thorpe, and it ultimately does go out to the Cheshire neighborhood. But we have a pretty big gap in our stops as you're heading out towards the Cheshire neighborhood. And we had been working for quite some time. So there is a development called Star Point Apartments, which is a little bit before like Fratelli's Pizza. It is a affordable housing development, and we had been for a while working to get a bus stop there. And as you I think all know, Highway 180 is an ADOT road, and things got a little jumbled, and ultimately the bus stop was not included when that apartment complex opened. But there's still a pretty big gap, and there's a big need there. So we've been working for years on the First Mile, Last Mile project, which is a grant we received to improve pedestrian and bike access near bus stops. We've been doing this in conjunction with the City of Flagstaff. And that project is going to include several new pedestrian crossings on Solier, but also on Highway 180. And one of those pedestrian crossings will be around that Whiting Road that you see there. So allowing a safe way for people who live in that area to get back and forth between those two bus stops. So we have been working with the owners of the Star Point Apartments. They seem to be receptive to everything. And so we are proposing that we move forward with adding that bus stop to the right turn lane there at the Star Point Apartments. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a lot of words, sorry. I'll do my best to describe it. So last year you did approve the extension of Route 8, which is our teal route that goes out West Route 66. And so as of last July, we extended it and it goes out to Woody Mountain Road, uses the roundabout and comes back. You can see it in the teal in that map. Our long-term plan for this route was to make a full loop around that all of the new development happening in that area. As you know, there's many single-family homes, multi-family, Habitat for Humanity, all of those things happening out there. So we are proposing to basically extend this route. So instead of using the roundabout to turn back, we would turn right on McAllister Ranch Road and then right on Alvin Clark and then make our way back to West Route 66. So adding those bus stops along the way throughout the neighborhood to capture that. And then heading back towards downtown on West Route 66, we would add a bus stop at the right, that's Thompson basically. So it's kind of across from the Maverick, a companion stop to the Maverick. But this would also necessitate, we were also proposing the closure of what we call the Thompson Loop. So right now that the route does do where the black is, where it says stops 10, 11, and 12, it does that loop. So stop 10, which is I still affectionately call the Daily Sun stop, even though the Daily Sun is no longer there. Those who use that stop can easily use the new proposed pink dot right above it, up on West Route 66 and Thompson. The stop 11 is a shared stop with Route 10. So it's in front of True North Dentistry on Forest Meadows and University, and that it is served by another route. And then stop 12, which is sort of across from Home Depot, a little bit south of there, we are proposing to close that stop. So we have had one of our team members has gone out to do some surveys in that area to talk to riders who are using those proposed stops that would be closed, and gathering some information from them about what their travel patterns and things like that to see how we could mitigate those changes to them. So that is also, once again, part of Proposition 488, service to new areas. It was one of the promises made as part of that. Next slide, please. And then last but not least is Route 66, which is our red route, which does exactly as it sounds. It traverses Route 66. It goes out to the Christmas tree neighborhood and then comes back to the mall. So two things with this one. One, similar to Route 3, increasing that frequency to 20 minutes during weekday peak time. So 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. approximately. And then adding another bus stop. So we are still working on the exact location of this, but I think as a lot of you know, the Sacred Peaks Health Center opened in this area several years ago. It's at that, it's hard to see in that map, but it is right above the pink dot. There's been several requests to put transit in this area because of the way that Route 66 traverses and the nature of this roadway. We aren't able to have a stop right in front of it because that bus would then have to make its way all the way across to make that left turn, if there's no signal there, to make that left turn into the Christmas tree neighborhood. But there is still a gap in our system, and we understand, we certainly healthcare facilities and transit do go hand in hand. So we've been looking at other areas where we could get closer to the Sacred Peaks Health Center. So we've identified an area near, if you know where Wizards Hearth and Home is on US 89, in that general area, to add a bus stop there to better serve that. It won't be right in front of it. It will certainly be within a walking distance. And for those who are not able to traverse that, we do obviously have our paratransit service, which would be an option for those who are not able to make that walk. So that is Route 66. Next slide, please. And then just a little bit about public outreach that we will do regarding these service changes. So sending out a press release, putting signage at impacted bus stops with QR codes on how to provide comments, mailers in areas that are impacted by this, and then social media as well to gather feedback. And then, like I mentioned, we will present you with that feedback at our April board meeting and recommend a path forward. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chair,
Any
Mayor,
questions?
I have a question and I don't know how to raise my hand on Zoom.
Please go ahead, Director Matthews.
Jackie, thank you for the presentation. I have a question and on I think the first route additions that you were covering was the veterans home.
Yes.
Because I know that the residents there are not mobile. They are incapacitated. So is this for staff?
It could certainly be for staff. There's other developments in that area as well. So yes, and we in past conversations with them, with the veterans home, they were very adamant about the need for transit in that area. So those are the historic conversations that we had with that group. But there are other developments, other housing, other things happening in that area. Northern Arizona Healthcare does intend on, I believe, building a new facility across the street from there. There's like a rehab hospital, and I believe that it's just right in that general area. So it is, although the stop will be called the veteran home, I apologize, I don't remember the exact name of the facility. It is not just designed to serve them.
Okay. Thank you for that. I do know there is that rehab center, quite a walking distance actually. Sorry. From that, and last I heard, the occupancy of the veterans home was only 5 because they can't get people qualified in there because of just their criteria. So I just want to make sure that if we're going to add a stop, that that's the best location to support everyone that works in that area. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
If I could add something.
Please go ahead.
Geronimo Vasquez. Just as about the veterans home, it's not just about the veterans that live there. There's also service there for veterans. And so it would be beneficial to have a stop there to make sure that veterans who don't live there, but who use their services, have access to those services. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Vasquez.
And Jackie, I know that there's a extensive effort to get as much public comment and public engagement as possible on something like this. How much typically would you expect? How much comments would you expect on changes like this?
I would say pretty minimal. When we did this last summer, the bulk of the comments were positive about people very excited about Route 8 extending. I would anticipate that we might get a couple of comments about stop closures. Because that does impact people. Like I said, we are trying to work to have one-on-one conversations. That's how little these stops are used, is that we can have at least the one that we are proposing to close. It doesn't really have an alternate, is not heavily used. So we've been out there. My colleague Lorena has been out there at various times of day to talk to people. I would anticipate that to be kind of the biggest comment. Other than that, you might anticipate Route 66 doesn't really go, other than Christmas Tree doesn't really go through any residential areas. There may be concerns about a bus going through a residential area every 20 minutes instead of every 30 minutes. Sometimes you do have comments like that, but.
Sure. And that's sort of leads to my next question. Most of these items that we're looking at are really additive to the system, right?
Correct.
And so that one that involves a closure, it sounds like you said, there's some initial outreach for folks. What has been the feedback to date?
The feedback to date mostly has been that people have alternatives. There are a couple, I think there was 1 or 2 comments about how it would make it more difficult, but we did question, we have some questions on if that was true, because there are some alternatives in that area. So I do think a lot of the negative potential negative comments with some education could be, because there are pretty good alternatives in that area. The area is quite well served already. And so I think a lot of it would be some education on our part on some, it may be a little bit of a changing of habits as well of, you know, like you're used to this thing, but here's a different way you could do it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for that. And really, part of the purpose of this is really to get all that feedback, right? And
Correct.
Make some informed decisions.
Correct. And we will present that to you. And if there is an overwhelming outcry and we need to go back to the drawing board or go back to and make a different choice, then we can certainly have that conversation.
Thank you for that. Are there any further questions from members of the board? Okay.
All right. Next slide. I think we are asking for action to open a public comment period.
Right. If there are no additional questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Tony. And second by Geronimo, I believe.
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Jackie. So we're down to item number 11, ability to assess impact fees for necessary transit infrastructure costs.
Yes, thank you, Chair, Directors. Next slide, please, Rhonda. I wanted to start this presentation with just why this topic is important. So we're talking about necessary transit infrastructure costs, and what that means is the amenities shown here. Bus stops are the storefront to our business and makes a lasting impression in public and rider perception of the bus system. And also, according to MetroPlan surveys, 65% of people are interested in switching transportation modes. However, bus stops that are uncomfortable next to traffic, without a buffer, or without seating or lighting discourage that switching. It also determines whether parents let their children take the bus to school. That's a huge demographic for our system and potentially could be much larger. Sign stops, so the stop shown in the picture on the left, they usually fit in the city's road right-of-way, and it makes sense for a lot of locations to just have a sign stop. Places where a lot of people get off the bus, that makes a lot of sense. However, stops that meet the transit guidelines for logo and shelter improvements, the center and right pictures, require property easements. And so you can see how the middle picture has a little notch cut out of the wall. That development worked with Mountain Line to make that notch to, give some easement, upgrade from a sign to a bench. And then you can see on the right that, shelter takes a much larger footprint than a sign stop. And so, signs are easy to fit in the roadway, but those logo and shelter improvements require property easements, so more challenging. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And that results in many sign stops with uncomfortable conditions shown here. These are two pretty high boarding stops, one on the left, so it identifies, I'll let you read where they're located. But overall, the easiest and most cost-effective way to improve bus stops is during larger construction projects. So when there's roadway projects, or if a development is coming in, try to work with them to integrate it into that development or that roadway, so it's a flowing environment with some space carved out for passengers. As if that makes sense. Like here, both of these are commercial areas, very high ridership again, pretty exposed to the elements as well. So, all meeting the warrants for these bus stop improvements. And the board agreed at the October 2024 advance. You all identified bus stop improvements and prioritized 40 bus stops to be improved across the Mountain Line system. So I just wanted to bring it back, like that's kind of the overarching goal in this conversation is having that front door, storefront experience for the riding public and for our community members. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So the transit assessment, so now kind of switching gears into what we're talking about today, the last cap transit assessment that the city conducted with Mountain Line recommended many ways to better integrate transit into the streetscape in the examples I just provided. And the city and MetroPlan are already including most of these options in the Safe Streets Master Plan that is underway. However, the transit assessment also recommended that we conduct further legal research on transportation impact fees to determine if we wanted to pursue them. And so that was the one kind of outstanding item that I want to focus on today. Next slide, please. So we did ask our legal team at Dickinson and Wright to conduct research, and this is the outcomes in their findings. The attachment in your board packet does include the full legal memo. If you would like to read that, please do. But here I copied in kind of the main punchlines that that their necessary transit infrastructure can be included in the fees assessed for street infrastructure. And there are requirements which must be met to do so, but the requirements are the same requirements applicable to fees for other necessary street infrastructure. So overall, like, yep, transit can do it. There are some requirements to do that. Next slide, please, Rhonda. We talked with the city of Tempe, who currently assesses and collects fees for Valley Metro's transit improvements. So staff from city, MetroPlan, and Mountain Line learned from Tempe that the bus stop easements and amenities are owned and maintained by the city of Tempe. So that'll be important in a minute. But also that the biggest impact in their bus stop improvements has come from including transit improvements in their engineering standards and zoning codes, something that's happening with the Safe Streets Master Plan process right now. And Tempe also expressed that the impact fee process still involves a lot of negotiation with developers. It's not as prescriptive as Mountain Line imagined it would be. It was just a great conversation overall, a good learning experience. And next slide, please. So we met with city.
Having a great day. She says, thanks, Dad. Missed you too.
Thank you. The memo's findings. Oh, sorry, I went a slide ahead. But will you go back one, Rhonda? I'm sorry. So we met with the city and MetroPlan partners to discuss the memo findings. And while it clearly identifies impact fees can fund transit improvements, there's a hang up with the ownership of the bus stop easement and amenities. So in the Tempe example, Tempe City owned them, and in Flagstaff, Mountain Line owns the bus stop easements and those shelters or benches that we put at the bus stops. So this could likely be overcome through additional legal research, collaboration with the city, intergovernmental agreements. But just kind of a question, again, we're weighing all of our options here. So that would be required if we wanted to pursue the transportation impact fee. And I also wanted to just thank the city. They offered to include transit capital improvements in their current impact fee analysis to understand what the transit component might look like among all the desired public safety, park, library, and road improvements that you're evaluating, the city is evaluating. But again, we're just weighing our options. And then we had a couple additional events that impacted kind of our recommendation for impact fees. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And that was getting a grant to address our highest priority bus stop improvements. That just happened last fall. It was wonderful news. These are the bus stops that the board identified to be improved at that October 2024 advance. And then we also have had that 2024 transit tax increase be successful. That does include costs for new bus stops. And so we've already been using that transit tax revenue for the 11 bus stops on the Route 8 extension. So yeah, definitely an important contribution to the system, and nice that got included for a cost. So basically I'm trying to say is that we're pretty covered for known conditions. All of our wish lists for the bus stop system, bus stops in our system, our baseline has really been improved at a really positive condition. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So after weighing all of the options, staff recommend that Mountain Line does not pursue impact fees for transit infrastructure costs at this time. Staff recommends we continue following the other last cap transit recommendations, which again are in progress in that Safe Streets Master Plan effort. And we do believe that will better achieve our bus stop improvement goals. Adding the transit capital improvements into engineering standards and the public improvement section of the zoning code that will help us set aside space in the road right away for bus stops. And so the transit impact is clear for development and for city partners. It's on a map, it's well known. It would improve first and last mile connections to bus stops. However, it would not require developments to contribute any funds or increase right of way to accommodate bus stop improvements. However, Mountain Line can continue requesting voluntary contributions from developers and will continue working with our city and DOT partners on roadway projects as well to integrate transit. And that new framework in the Safe Streets Master Plan will also improve the final bullet to find clear points early on in roadway and development projects to discuss transit. So the bus system just doesn't miss opportunities as Flagstaff is planned and developed. So this is my last slide. Staff does believe that the research has given us a greater understanding of our options now and for future decisions. We really want to give it some time, let the Safe Streets Master Plan play out, and Mountain Line can reevaluate whether pursuing impact fees for transit capital improvements makes sense. And with that, I'll answer any questions, but I am looking for board action. Next slide, please, Rhonda. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Busy?
If Chair, if I may, this is Scott Holcomb.
Please.
I did the research and prepared the memo that we have, and I do think it helped with the city. One thing I did want to add to Busy, and I apologize, Busy, is looking at this again too, that I think it's consistent with what you're saying too. But if down the way the fees, if down the road you wanted to look at having some component of impact fees when the city comes back to you, the linchpin to all of this on that part, and I think is consistent with the other actions being taken, is that the transit improvements be part of the infrastructure improvement plan from the city. So in all the engineering designs and looking at the impact fees and all of this and working with the developers, is that one part as the city goes forward is making sure that transit is given consideration in the infrastructure impact improvement plan that it adopts. I just wanted to emphasize that. So this is not stopping that process. I think it's consistent with what Busy has laid out, but that is key to any of these things moving forward. Thank you.
Appreciate that context. Any questions?
Chair Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, I do have a question. First, Busy, thank you. This is it was a lot of information you shared with us today, and I appreciate all the hard work that went into this. And maybe I missed it in your presentation, but so you're asking the board to take action on something we've not taken action on, and I'm just, is that part of, like, we have to report this or we have to document that we made the decision formally not to pursue impact fees for transit infrastructure costs?
Thank you for that question. I will defer to Heather or Jackie if they have a response different than mine, but my understanding is that we had brought this was a bit of a hanging subject when I brought this to the board April of last year, that we were, going to kind of follow this research path and just see where it takes us. So I think it's really just closing the loop on that outstanding topic.
Chair, if I may jump in.
Please.
Really, I think what's appropriate here is direction. It's not that you have to, we're looking for the board to agree that, yes, we're not going to pursue it at this time. And that can be in the form of direction. If you want to file a motion, you can, but just getting consensus from the board and saying, yes, this is, we think, proceed as you're recommending. That's all we need. Unless Heather, am I overstepping?
No, that's great. And I think to Busy's point, we were trying to follow up. We anticipated potentially bringing something back with a recommended action. And we were just trying to be clear that after all of this research, we're actually not recommending we do anything in regards to this. So I would sum it with, you don't have to take action, but if you felt like you wanted to give us direction other than what we recommend, then that is the purview of the board, and we will certainly take that direction.
And I think that's probably the cleanest at this point to have some action on this, even if it's not to pursue impact fees. So that's what I'll be looking for in just a second here. But question for Busy. You mentioned that that you basically work with developers to sort of voluntarily comply with providing easements for stop. Can you give us a little insight into the nature of some of those conversations and how willing folks have been to provide those stops?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. Sometimes, like Jackie, going back to Jackie's presentation, we're adding the bus stop at the Star Point Apartments. So we, like she mentioned, it's been years in the making. We approached that developer when they went through the city development process. They said, hey, we have low-income individuals. This seems to pair nicely with our goals of the project. And because it's on ADOT right away, it really, in the 11th hour, ADOT asked for some additional engineering moves. I think like adding a longer exit lane going northbound out of the development, and that bus stop could use that instead of using the right turn lane. So some different requirements at the last minute prevented that developer from making those accommodations to enable the bus stop to be added. So thankfully, Anne has just continued that conversation and relationship with ADOT, and really their opinion has changed on the safety aspects of the project. They have allowed us to put the bus stop, add the bus stop into that lane. So the developers, provided an easement to put that shelter in that location. Different things like that, but that is not the case for all situations. Often Mountain Line, here's another example, we're actually adding a stop on Gemini at the Live Apartments, and we approached them years ago when they went through the permitting process and asked for, let's see what that looks like. Is there a bus stop easement? We might be doing this loop permanently, and they said, no, thank you. And so again, it's really voluntary by the developers. Sometimes we get traction, sometimes we don't. Yeah.
Okay. And I know that, when we're talking about infrastructure, that's become, very much all encompassing, but I noticed that we're primarily talking about stops here. Is that sort of what we're limiting this discussion to? Or could it potentially expand beyond specifically just stops?
Excellent question. And yes, we have evaluated, what other things maybe we want to ask for funding for. I think capital developments are the most cut and dry, and even that is not terribly cut and dry, and asking for fees. I'd say overall, we've evaluated a lot of different fee and funding opportunities. I think the capital request was maybe the lowest hanging fruit of them, and even that we're just not interested in pursuing at this time.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from members of the board? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we do not pursue impact fees for transit infrastructure costs at this time.
I second. This is Matthews.
Thank you, Director Sweet and Matthews. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you so much, everybody, for that discussion. On to, I'd like to take items 12 and 13 sort of together, but with an opportunity for questions from members of the board between those two, because I think they're pretty much interrelated. So, Heather?
Thank you, Chair Mayor and Board of Directors. So as Chair recognized, these are really related, and I would like to add some background. So under the resolution for delegation of authority for procurement, we are authorized to procure goods and services that are within our financial plan and in the adopted budget. About a year ago with the adoption of not a year ago, a couple months ago with the adoption of the 2026 budget, we had capacity to move forward with the purchase of 2 rebuilds of buses. Now we are approaching a desire to do 2 more and needed to come to you to ask for that because you have not yet adopted the 2027 budget and the financial plan did not show capacity for all 4 of these vehicles at our last financial presentation to you. So respecting the boundaries of the resolution and the delegation of authority, we need to come to you today and ask for permission to do those 2 rebuilds. But I felt like it was really important that we document for you why rebuilds. Why are we talking about bus rebuilds when our prior objective and approach to fleet has been purchase of new vehicles? And so hence the reason for the first staff report, which is really to discuss and review with you the benefits of the bus rebuilds, to document all the things that we as staff have gone through to make a determination on the first 2 vehicles, because I really think it's important that you have that information and that knowledge of all the steps we've taken to consider this before we ask you to also then give us permission to purchase rebuild of 2 more vehicles. So with that, the next slide. Midlife overhauls is an industry standard. We're at the middle of the life of a vehicle, and for most of our buses, they are 12-year life vehicles. So around its 6th or 7th year, a lot of systems will overhaul those vehicles at what they call midlife. Mountain Lion has never needed to do that for a variety of reasons. However, now, as we face constraints on the number of manufacturers available for new vehicle purchases in our industry and a desire to really be thoughtful and make conscious decisions about what we do with vehicles as they reach their end of life, there's this new consideration, if you will, of overhauling or rebuilding buses at end of life. So, we really believe that rebuilding these buses meets a growing need to be innovative. A year and a half ago, there were 5 bus manufacturers in the United States that met the Buy America, Build in America standards. There are now 2. So 5 years ago, or a year ago, we were able to sustain new vehicle procurements industry-wide of around 6,000 vehicles. And today, we're going to see more like less than 3,000 vehicles come off of those new build lines. It also allows us to be nimble in thinking about the future of our transit fleet. How do we change strategy to create capacity for service resilience, especially in light of changing technology, whether that technology is a move to electric or that change is a move to hydrogen fuel cell or something else. I wanted to really share this as background for our decisions and really to talk about, again, those processes that we went through. So we have 4 vehicles that have reached their end of life. That end of life was defined by the Federal Transit Administration as 12 years. The vehicles are between 15 and 16 years old at this point in time. Some of them have experienced some significant component replacement. A couple of them have new engines in them because they weren't at end of life when their engine failed, and therefore we had to at minimum replace that engine. If we now get rid of that vehicle, we're discarding that investment that we've made in that engine replacement, and really that engine replacement has many years of life left in it. So why rebuild? Hopefully the staff report gave you some understanding of the different factors that we've looked at. And I have the 6 bullet points, which were the closing bullet points of my staff report. Fleet resiliency during our transition and really challenges of manufacturing, just as I spoke about. Additionally, rebuilding our buses supports our goals on sustainability as well as fiscal stewardship. Rebuilding a bus cost about 40% of what a new bus cost. It allows us to be nimble in advancing service changes. So instead of waiting the 3 years for a new bus to come in, it takes about 6 months to rebuild a bus. And then we have that vehicle in our fleet for service changes. It also allows us to be adaptable in supporting community events. So oftentimes you'll hear us say we can't support that community event with our federally funded vehicles. By rebuilding these end-of-life vehicles, end of life again being the Federal Transit Administration defined life for that federal investment, with local funding, we now have the capability of using those vehicles to support community events like the climb, like I don't know, the high school students needing to get from Flag High down to the Sky Dome. Things that the federal government calls charter. When we use our federal vehicles, we can use these vehicles to support those community needs and those community events differently as long as we have staffing. So I'm hoping, I know I've been very, very brief and I'm a little bit scattered and I apologize for that. I'm not really asking for action. I wanted to make you aware of why we're rebuilding buses. And I really would welcome your questions as I want to address them and provide you with adequate information before we move on to the next staff report.
Okay, questions for Heather?
Chair, I have a question. This is Board Member Matthews.
Please.
Heather, and I could have missed it because I stepped away for 1 second, but what is the cost in the rebuilds?
So a rebuild, it's going to be captured in the next staff report in a little more detail, but a rebuild, we're estimating to cost around $550,000 per vehicle. That does take a hybrid electric bus and make it again a new hybrid electric bus. The expected life on that is about 8 to 10 years. If I buy a new bus, it's 12 years. Obviously, we're seeing 15 years out of those vehicles, not 12, but the federal expected life is 12. So it's roughly a 60% reduction in our cost from the new vehicle price to the rebuild price. We are in the staff report we're going to present next. We are asking us to give 10% room for a 10% change order. We are starting to get memos from our manufacturers on impact of tariffs on bus parts. So while a bus must be built in America and 60% of the content must be American made, there are components that go into our buses, both as brand new purchases and rebuilds, that will have tariff cost added to them now. So we're asking for that leeway to help us adjust for tariffs. And I'm sorry, I probably went way beyond your question.
No, that was great. And did I understand you at the beginning of this that this is just to answer questions and for information only because you have in the budget, you have the authority to purchase these vehicles without board approval?
For the first two, we did. So the first two were within the budget and the financial plan. And so we did move forward with that, authorizing that. Those are slated to be picked up in March at the end of our Mountain Express season and return to us in September. We'd like to go ahead and authorize 2 additional vehicles, but you have not yet adopted the 2027 budget. And so that's why the staff report after this is coming back to the board. But I felt like it was important for us to explain why we're doing rebuilds before I ask permission to purchase rebuilds from you under our process.
And so I'm just wanting to make sure I'm clear. And so whenever we buy a bus or do a rebuild, it will come before the board. I mean, we just at the city level, we approve, even though our city manager has the authority to sign a contract and sign purchase agreements up to 100,000. We approve all vehicle purchases. Are you, and this has caught my attention before, and I'm just trying to figure out how it's written in our budget, because I'd really like to see when we make a purchase or sign a contract over 50 or 100,000, that it's each action item is a board approved action and not just built into an overall budget. Does that make sense?
It does, and I know I heard this brought up a couple months ago as well. So our current process was that the board adopted a resolution in June of 2025. That resolution assigned authority to the CEO for procurements, even those exceeding 100,000, as long as that procurement was captured in our budget and our financial plan. And so that's how we have proceeded. I do recognize the concern from the board about how to proceed in the future. And I have put that procurement resolution on the tentative board agenda for May so that we can talk about whether the board wants to continue doing that, or, to your point, Director Matthews, go back to our historical system of procurements of 100,000 or more going to the board each time that they need to be approved. And I at that meeting can go into the history of why we have that resolution in place, what staff feel like are the pros to that, and we certainly want to consider the board input before we seek another approval of that resolution in June of 26.
So, okay, so we can discuss it in June, because as you've heard me in the past, I've struggled with this. That's a big authority. And I know that, the overall budget, but these purchases, I would like the board to have more direct knowledge and control on, so we'll address it in May. Thank you.
Yes, yes. The two that we are seeking, though, I did put on the agenda for approval, but you are correct that we did the prior to under the resolution, prior to the discussion about need to reconsider the resolution.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no more questions about broadly the benefits of bus rebuilds, I think we'll go ahead on to item number 13.
Great. So, Rhonda, if you'll skip ahead a couple of slides. So this is seeking permission to purchase the rebuild of 2 buses for a price not to exceed $610,000 per bus. Again, we anticipate the cost to be $550,000, but we are asking for some room on top of that for anticipated changes for tariffs and other reasons. So approving the rebuild of 2 buses. The contract that we are using to make these purchases is a Washington State Transit Association cooperative procurement and contracting opportunity. It is a federally approved contracting opportunity. Makes it possible for us to buy these vehicles without our own procurement process, which can take up to 6 months. The cost of rebuilding a bus is roughly 60% less than buying a new bus. I apologize, the secondary bullet here says not to exceed 600,000, but the staff report is the accurate amount, which is not to exceed 610,000 per bus. The delivery of a rebuilt bus is about 75% less than new buses. New buses are between 24 and 30 months now, and the rebuild will take approximately 6 months from the time they pick it up until they return it to property. And you can think of rebuilding as flipping a house. So just like they flip a house and make it brand new again, rebuilding a bus is the same. They go in and assess all the components. They make recommendations on what to replace based on wear and tear. They do not just go in and arbitrarily replace everything. They are very strategic in what they replace. And so the cost that we've given you is what we expect to be the most expensive way to rebuild those vehicles. Next slide. Current fleet that we have is adequate for our existing service levels, but as Jackie just presented, we do want to expand service. That's going to require 2 more buses on the road during peak service. And then in July of 27, we expect to make additional service improvements, including making Saturday service look like Monday through Friday service. This really requires us to know that our fleet is resilient to failures. And we do that by expanding how many vehicles we have and also that rebuild process that takes something old and makes it new again. Additionally, the rehab buses allow us to do our training and special service offerings and marketing programs without taking fleet out of the lineup for service delivery. So again, it makes us resilient, not just to delivery of service, but to meeting those community needs and even our own needs with our training program. Next slide. We have financial capacity for the 2 rebuilds that are proposed. Again, we are proposing that it would be locally funded. While rebuilding a bus is eligible for federal funding, it then requires that vehicle to have an extended federal life. And we believe that by locally funding it, we have more flexibility in how that vehicle is used in our community going forward. It's less restrictive than federally funding the rebuild. It is in our 5-year capital improvement program. It is in the drafted fiscal year 2027 budget, and we do have it reflected in the 5-year financial plan. I recognize all of that, also knowing that we haven't presented those pieces to you. And I am presenting this in advance of that because of the timeline. The 4 vehicles, the 2 we have already approved, the 2 that we have pending approval, have components in it that are reaching end of life in the industry. So we'd like to authorize these repairs so that they can get their hands on those components for these vehicle rebuilds. Otherwise, it is a costly upgrade to some of that equipment, specifically to the ramps themselves. So just wanted to explain some of the timing of those 2 components. Normally, I'd want to give you something after you had seen a draft budget. Next slide. And that's briefly everything that I have in regards to asking for your approval to purchase the rebuild of 2 35-foot Gillig buses from Complete Coach Works for a price not to exceed $610,000 per bus. Again, we believe the cost will be around $550,000, but this gives us a little cushion on that pricing piece for tariffs, and then also in case there are components found that need replacement that we didn't anticipate. And with that, I would turn it back to you for questions.
Any questions from the board for Heather? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair Mayor, I will move, excuse me, to authorize the CEO and general manager to purchase rebuild of 2 35-foot Gillig buses from Complete Coach Works for and not to exceed the price of $610,000 per bus.
Thank
I'll
you,
second.
Director Williams. And who was the second?
Sweet.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. I look forward to sharing with you the before and after pictures of those first 2 vehicles.
All right. We have several progress reports that are in your packet for review. Unless there's anything specifically that board member wants to call out, we'll move on to February anniversaries.
Great. Before I jump into February anniversaries, a couple of current events I'll highlight from the report that was in your packet. Mountain Express ridership in December of 25 was 39% higher than December of 24. We believe that really is reflective of that 20-minute service that we fought so hard for. As mentioned by Bob Holmes of Nexus Consulting earlier, Jackie and I will be in DC the week of March 2nd. We'll be joining many of our transit colleagues, but definitely touring some Capitol offices with Bob and his team to really talk about our federal priorities and reauthorization. The 2025 audit is on track, and we anticipate filing the report by the federal deadline of March 31st. Thanks to Megan for her efforts to make both timely submissions and really be responsive to the inquiries of the firm. They were very complimentary of everything that Megan has done to ensure we stay on track. We'll have more at the March meetings on the report, the draft of the report, and hopefully some of the findings. Another trainee class starts next week. Unfortunately, we have lost 10 staff members since December 1st in our operator pool. And while we were able to fill many of those vacancies with staff that were in our part-time pool or our last training class, this class is still much needed to support our team going forward. This is mostly natural attrition, people who leave the area for a variety of reasons, but we're digging in to make sure that if there are things that we're doing to create an opportunity for people to want to leave, we're addressing those concerns. So more to come on our turnover and retention. The recruitment for the operations lead position is officially underway. We have already opened on Friday, and we've had more than a dozen inquiries already. So we're very excited about the interest. We're hoping that it's a very positive outlook on being able to find the right person to serve Mountain Line in the future to come. And I'm also excited to share with you that we do have a finalist for the planning director after almost a year of recruitment efforts. They will be on site tomorrow to do their final meet and greet with staff and talk about the opportunities here at Mountain Line. And the last thing before I move on to anniversaries, I had emailed you all about a need to reconsider our May meeting date. If you could take a look at that and let us know your thoughts on your schedule. I know we've heard from some, but not everyone, and we'd like to finalize a plan. I know we have several months, but it's always good to get it on people's calendars now. And with that, we have 6 anniversaries to share. I think you all know Lorena. They regularly present on our different planning efforts and are key to our success with many of our grants. So happy anniversary to Lorena, 2 years here at Mountain Line. Serena Boynton, she serves as our customer service and marketing specialist, also celebrating 2 years. If you've ever seen social media over the last 12 months, you probably saw evidence of Serena's work. She's been fantastic. Marvin Chi, celebrating 13 years as a transit operator. I remember for the first couple of years, Marvin did not want to go full-time, and we're grateful that he finally made the decision to join us full-time. He definitely is a core part of our success. Next slide. And the last 3 I'll share is Andrew, who goes by Ace in our maintenance team. Andrew joined our maintenance team when he was a young man right out of technical certification training. He is now our lead mechanic. I think you've heard me say before, Gillig, our bus manufacturer, often calls Andrew to find out how he addressed an issue. He is quite the mechanic lead, mechanically inclined, and we are so grateful for his leadership. Lisa Connor, celebrating 7 years. Lisa does all of our eligibility and ADA reviews, so she's key in how we get people certified on our transit program and move them about the community. And Violet Curley is celebrating her 2nd anniversary as a transit operator. With that, that's everything that I have for current events, but I'd be happy to go back over anything or answer questions. And if any progress report generated questions for you, please let me know, and we'll be sure to address them at a future meeting.
Any questions for Heather? Thank you, Heather. So on to items from committee and staff. Our next board meeting is March 18th, 10 to 12:30. There's the working agenda.
Bring your thinking brains.
All right. There's no additional comments or questions. This meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good day.
Yeah, be safe.
Bye-bye.
Mhm.